Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This channel is for educational purposes, and we check out great theories, concepts, and discoveries that would be very impactful and would benefit your life in various ways, spiritual, mental, and physical. But you probably don't know about them because they have been suppressed, and the powers that be don't want you to know about them. You have to do a great deal of digging to uncover them. And then you have to do some digging internally to stomach them because in many cases they point out all the lies that you have accepted for your whole life. And, um, you know, they're not what you call red pills, not very comfortable, but the evidence is there and the evidence overwhelms the evidence that you have for your inherited belief system. And this is a segment number 36 that we call the Q-tip of the spear. And this is one of our two segments that's kind of uh, dedicated to the patriots out there, the ones who do the digging. And this is some encouragement for them to dig further. Um, I applaud the digging that they've done. They just need to go deeper and much deeper because the psychological operations out there in the 20th and 21st century are a lot. There's a lot of stuff, but it goes back all the way back to Adam and Eve and before. And so there's psychological operations all along the way. And we have belief systems that we've inherited that don't take that into account. So now we're going to defeat the globalists. But the question is, are we going to have a workable platform to move forward with after that into the so-called golden age? And my answer to that is no. Christianity is not going to work. Deism will work. Many patriots who founded this country were deists, and that is the belief in one God who is good, who has endowed the humans with reason and other higher mental faculties that enable them to behold God's creation through nature, the laws of physics and math and geometry, and we are able to understand the Creator directly through these faculties, not some indirect communication through intermediaries like priests and pastors and rabbis, but directly, not through interpolated, translated, and forged, and recopied and misunderstood language in books, but directly cutting out all the dogma. And that is how we are going to need to move forward. In addition to the fact that the New Testament was also a psychological operation written by the Romans, and so it just isn't true. That is another change that will have to be made, is that truth is going to have to be higher than God. Because if God is not true, then where are we? So we have to have a true God. And the one that's articulated in the Old Testament is not. That is Yahweh Elohim. Yahweh is one of the Elohim. These are the ones who came down from above, not God. It was translated as God, but it's really just a powerful race of giants who had high technology and high intellect, but very, very little emotional maturity, and almost every um, psych, psychological pathology known to man. Um, so, you know, that's where we're headed there. Now, with the Q-tip of the spear, that's the name of this segment that we do. And, I look at or at least listen to the podcasts of some of the tip of the spear Q people, and just muse on that. I think a lot of these guys really helped me in the last couple days because it gets kind of bleak, especially on Mondays when kind of none of this is on, and you just get assaulted by these doomers, and you can really sense the doomers because they're the ones who try to second guess, outthink, and in other ways underestimate the boss. He's got much better information than they all have, but they insist on, you know, saying that he's not aware of this or he's being manipulated by that, and all of this. I'm full control, so I don't believe that any of this is really going on. But as far as the soap opera is concerned, that's one thing that plays into it. Another is you kind of got to balance all of the evil forces out there. You know, you can't weigh one over the other. There's the Israelis. You know, well, the way I like to think of it is it's the Western religion, and I think of it in terms of five Western religions. First, you got Christianity, then you have Judaism, then you have Islam, and then you have Satanism, and then you have atheism slash communism slash scientism. And, you know, the, the communist scientism people, that's the CCP. And then you have the Satanists. These are the globalists emanating more or less from London, but throughout Europe. And then you have the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic, um, and that may or may not include also the Wahhabists, um, that maybe are crypto Jews instead. But basically the Muslim terrorists. And like yesterday, I was talking about them, or the day before. I don't mean to make light of them or underestimate them, but they have been overestimated. Like there's all these people just going up in arms about how there was some ceremony, a Muslim ceremony in New York City that happened, but in reality, that didn't happen recently. It happened like 2 years ago. And so, you get alarmed about things, but it's really what you call amplified messaging. It's true, but it's amplified. So it just needs to be kept in balance. You can't like lean one way or the other into, the evil. And then there's you know, the Israelis, the Mossad, the Zionists, and they, represent the Judaism. And then you have the Christians, and I would just call them the Flavians. Flavian means blonde or golden, but it is the name of the dynasty of Caesars that wrote the New Testament as a psychological operation. And their ancestors, I mean, their successors, their heirs, became the bishops of Rome, and then eventually became the popes of Rome. And so there's kind of an unbroken genealogical chain from the Flavians to the Roman Catholic Church, but now it is spread out, including the Anglican Church and the Mormon Church and the uh, evangelicals. They all use the same book, slightly different versions of the same book. And that book is the Flavian part, especially the New Testament, but good chunks of the Old Testament as well, because the Romans wrote several of the Old Testament books also kind of in the scam that they called the Septuagint, that people date as 3rd century BC strictly because that's what Josephus told them, even though Josephus is writing from Caesar's palace in Rome, and so can't be trusted. But anyway, keep all 5 of those things kind of in balance, and I think it helps in terms of, um, not getting too doomed out, not getting too freaked out, but also staying, alert and, recognizing where the threat's coming from. But, given full control, I figure that these threats have all been neutralized except possibly the last one, the Christianity one. That is something that the Flavian one. That is something that the boss and the 17th letter need to be confronted about. Just in the same way that they were confronted, or the boss at least was confronted about the vaccine, or about, um, some of the clowns that he endorses from time to time. Um, and like some of the um, globalists that he puts on stage with him or signs a deal with or whatever as part of a humiliation ritual. Well, I do think that the boss and the 17th letter are aware of the true authors of the New Testament, but they don't want to break it to us because they can see what a big issue it is. So we have to evolve, we have to mature, just in the same way that we did when we found out that Santa Claus wasn't real. And, you know, they'll come clean. Okay, thanks for tuning in to the Q-tip of the spear. And we will see you next time. A couple more videos for today later on. And thanks for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and contribute. And have a great